My guest this week is the wonderful comic Ed Gamble, and we began, as is usual in these times, by discussing his experience of lockdown. How was your period of confinement?
Absolutely fine, to be honest. The second period of confinement, sort of used to it by then. It felt like I was returning to an old friend, you know?
Yes.
I was back in my routine.
It's amazing how, I mean, our jobs are very, very sociable, but it's amazing how quickly the introvert can be satisfied and then doesn't let the extrovert play anymore.
Oh, totally. I mean, I'm kind of dreading the idea of everything returning to some sort of normality, the idea of having to go to events and see people. And I like now that there's social rules drawn where you're not allowed to touch anyone.
Yes.
And you don't get too close to people, because then there's nothing to reverse there. There's no social rules to try and work out. It's just, everyone knows their place.
There's no do I hug or kiss. It's none of that.
Yeah, it's
you stand
nothing.
2 meters away.
You stand as far away as possible to stop yourself getting or passing on a disease.
I don't know where it's come from, but I've started bowing, and I'm not doing a cursory bow, but like a deep I'm meeting the Emperor of Japan bow, a sort of considered slow sort of contraction from the waist. And I don't know why, but now I do it to everybody.
Is that on greeting, or are you bowing out of situations?
Both hello and goodbye. So it's to be honest, I've only just managed to get upright by the time it's time to say goodbye in some situations. But it's I don't know what, and I went through a phase of winking for a while as well, which was so deeply sinister.
Yeah, I don't think the wink is ever acceptable, really.
No.
I think I went through I'm genuinely not trying to make a cheesy joke, but I did go through a winking stage as a teenager, where I would just wink, saying goodbye to people mainly, and it's not a good look, especially on a teenage boy.
Was there any hand gesture that accompanied it?
Occasionally finger guns.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say finger guns. Single or double guns?
Not single. I'm just trying to put myself in that mindset now. Occasionally the double guns with the motion as well.
Okay, or the motion oscillating between the two.
Yes, exactly. Like I'm firing my double finger guns. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's good. Yeah, I mean, worse on an adult though. I mean, as a teenager, one can accept there's a sort of youthful exuberance.
Yeah, sure. On a fully grown man, absolutely not.
But in my case, a fully grown woman, I think people just thought, oh God, she's having some kind of sort of psychosexual breakdown where she's just trying to lure everyone into her sex web, which I really wasn't. It was almost a tick. I'm quite I'm sort of a curious mixture of sort of having no boundaries and then being very uptight. So I think I was trying to find a new way of engaging with people in a non-hugging phase, because sometimes I'm really super huggy, and at that point I wasn't. Anyway,
do you wink? Do you combine the wink and the bow?
No, I don't wink. The winking's gone.
The winking's gone.
Just to consider that idea for a while. Well, I mean, it's a strong move, isn't it? Although the wink would be barely visible within seconds because the head would have dipped. Just maybe should I keep one eye closed as I bob down?
Well, the problem with that is you might then remove your depth perception and bump your own head on the floor.
My depth perception at best is limited. So I think for that one, I'm going to maintain eyes on the prize at all times.
Yeah.
Were you gigging before? I mean, I know obviously you do so many things, but were you actually gigging before lockdown? Were you in mid-tour or planning a tour?
Not mid-tour. I was sort of at the stage of just starting to do new material to write for a new tour, because I was going to do the Edinburgh Festival in August, do work in progress, and then tour beginning of next year and do like a spring tour. But that was all obviously cut short. So luckily, I mean, I know so many people who were in the middle of a tour that they had the show ready and they were doing it, they were doing the work, and it was all cut short. But yeah, luckily with me, I was just starting to come up with a new show.
But it's that's going to be very hard. I always sort of think it's a muscle you have to exercise constantly, isn't it? That sort of getting up in front of people and goofing about and failing and sometimes succeeding. But it's. I think it will be tough to return to that environment because everyone's got a bit soft. And
but everyone has.
Yeah, that's
which is the reassuring thing. I think people were worrying about not exercising that muscle and then realizing everyone's had the pause button hit. So we'll all be terrible. Basically, there was when the first lockdown was lifted, I think the audiences were wonderful because there were I did do some gigs and they were all weird for various reasons, but the audiences were great because they were so happy to be there and they understood that everyone was going to be bad for a bit. The next one, I don't know. If post-vaccine audiences, I think might be less forgiving.
When the herd immunity's been acquired.
Yes.
And they're all in there just waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you do the sort of car park gigs and those ones?
I did.
You?
I did 4 drive-in gigs, which were insane. I said yes to them for the novelty factor, but I knew as soon as I did the first one that if that's what comedy turned into, I would no longer be a comedian because they were very weird. It's the whole notion of people honking instead of laughing.
Oh, was that what happened? You see, I heard about the gigs, but I didn't know the mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, neither did I until I walked on for the first one, which was also in a torrential downpour. It was just like this torrent of horns and flashing lights. People flashing their lights at you.
You could get triggered by that sort of shit.
Well, you had to really readjust your attitude to horns and lights because I'd driven to the gig.
But imagine if you'd had a sort of traumatic incident in the past involving a motor vehicle. You'd be absolutely screwed in that environment.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I digress.
No, they were. I mean, it was really full on, and just the idea of telling a joke and then there's this pause and then everyone's like. Wah, 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 wah.
But did you do jokes when there was... The worst thing for me would be... I mean, I'm only going from personal experience where there's only been the lone voice of laughter, usually a family member. But if the horns are silent apart from one kind of slightly wheezy... that's death, isn't it?
Yeah, it'd be amazing if they carried on and someone managed to get a horn that is... just the sort of...
Plaintive, yes.
Sad plaintive horn.
So you did 20 minutes. Also, can I just say, environmentally... poor. Poor. I mean, and I've no detriment to the promoters who are obviously trying to do a wonderful thing in very difficult times. But that you're basically in a sort of bowl of fumes there, and with sort of lights and noise. Yeah,
it wasn't ideal. I mean, luckily all the ones I did were sort of outside of urban environments, but I know there were quite a few. I know there were a few in car parks in like Stratford and places like that where they weren't even allowed to honk their horn because there were people living nearby. So there were some gigs where you'd go out, perform to cars to silence, which...
It's like comedic dogging, isn't it? It's sort of,
it really is.
It's a Rizzler paper between that and dog. You just need someone to take the trousers down and then you're right there. You're right there.
It was also a race on those lineups as to who was going to make the first dogging joke. So I did one where we did 2 in one day, and Zoe Lyons was on first, and she went out and made a dogging joke straight away. I was like, "Damn it, Lyons!
Yeah,
you got there first.
You've got to get in there." But the idea that you'd be speaking to people in sealed vehicles, so they can't hear you, and there's no no way they can feed back their feelings anyway.
Some of them are doing. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think they're listening through the radio or something like an old school drive-in. But yeah, the idea that they can't feed back even with the horn is, it was awful. I mean, I did one where someone drove out, which is the ultimate.
No. And it's not. You can't even pretend it's for a wee in that situation. No, normally,
exactly. The whole family are leaving. Really, that was really dreadful. And they're right at the back as well, and they had to come around the perimeter of the gig and then drive out the gate. And we all saw it happening. We just had to watch this Ford Focus quietly try and sneak out.
I mean, sort of. Some of my favourite gigs have been when it's so bad. You can just let go of all the material. Not that I used to write very much of it. Let go of it and just freeform at the sadness and madness of what's happening to you. The fact that, at this time in our lives, we should be experiencing this level of rejection and sadness. It's just... But do you know what? Fair play. Because, I mean, as I say, I saw these gigs going on. I thought something does need to happen. Whether or not, in retrospect, it would have been that thing, I don't know. But something needs to happen in order to keep the idea of it going, to keep people's livelihoods going.
And that definitely happened. It was quite inspiring to see people scrabbling around trying to make something happen. And I think we all knew that none of them were ideal and none of them were perfect. But the fact that people were trying, I did So, and then they sort of indoor ones came back. I did some ones where everyone had masks on in the audience, which is quite a sinister thing to be faced with.
Yeah.
And then I did one gig in this brilliant venue called the Bill Murray in North London, and they'd got around it by putting a huge Perspex screen up in front of the stage. So essentially, you're like performing from inside the Pope Mobile. But
it looks like you've had threats made against you.
Yeah,
exactly. The sort of Met have taken precautionary measures.
Or it's something you would have seen in like vaudeville times to stop people throwing tomatoes at you.
Yes.
But what they hadn't taken into account is that when you get on the stage and they turn the stage lights on,
of course,
you can see a perfect reflection of yourself. So I was performing for an hour to a reflection of myself, like
almost like a
2 inches
hologram
from my face. Yeah, exactly.
And how much? I mean, if the lights were placed also incorrectly from the audience point of view, they would have just had glare. You'd have been barely visible.
Pure glare. I could see myself, but no one else could.
Oh God! I mean, soon it's coming to an end, thank goodness. And maybe we'll feel wistful about these times, but I sort of need a sweaty small room in the upstairs of a pub.
Yeah, no, I think people will be weird about it to start with, though, right? It'll feel odd. I mean, I think very quickly we all started seeing stuff on TV and going, "Why are those people standing so close to each other?"
Yes,
it just feels odd, doesn't it? But we'll get there.
Well, yeah, I saw some people. It was a very old show, but some people were sort of hugging and kissing, and I sort of felt like my grandmother tutting,
Yeah. Why aren't they bowing? Where's the bowing and winking?
No standards, for the love of God. The last time I saw you, again, albeit virtually, was playing Dungeons and Dragons, which I feel needs to be explored in a reasonable amount of depth, because it's the first time that I've played Dungeons and Dragons in about 25 years, and it's awoken a beast at the risk of sounding it's just really ridiculous. Have you always been into that kind of the fantasy netherworlds?
I don't know, kind of, but I'd never played Dungeons and Dragons properly before. Weirdly, my fiance is really into Dungeons and Dragons and plays a regular game, so she taught me some things about it. But I like the idea of it, and I like heavy metal, so I like that sort of that area of stuff. I've only recently got into things like board games, like more sort of like long form board games, which I now play on a regular basis. So I do enjoy that sort of thing. Are
you inducted now? Are you properly going to go for it? Like, have you got your regular character?
No, I don't. I don't think so. Not yet. I'd like to have another go at it, but my fiance won't let me join her game.
Why not?
Well, I think they've started, and it's her thing. I think.
What's her character?
Oh, I don't know what hers is at the moment. She was playing a big like orc troll thing. I think she might be an old lady now. I think she
lockdown
changed it. Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Lockdown's taken a toll on us all.
There's no judgment there. Judgment there. That's the thing. You can have hybridized beasts. I mean, as a relative newcomer again, the idea that you can create this alter ego and then, through the rather slow and old-fashioned mechanism of throwing a dice, rampage through foreign lands. I was quite into it.
So you playing regularly now?
Well, not on the reg, but lovely Paul, who set up the comic relief game that we did, has been in touch. I think he senses the vulnerable, Paul, and I'm in that list. But he's a damn fine gent, Paul Foxcroft. So
they did another one and didn't invite us back.
Well, it was really awkward because Paul said, "See you at the game," and I went, "Which game?" And then there was a really, really long period of time where he didn't get in touch, and then he just went, "Oops." So I thought it was you, me, Nish. Who else was it?
And Sarah Pascoe.
Of course, the Pascoe. I'm sorry, but for none of us to be invited back, that's poor.
I know. I think people were itching to see what happened with our characters and what adventures we were going to go on next.
My character was absolute shit. Because classic Perkins, I've been given so many options beforehand. I'm like, yeah. Paul's going, "You can be anything you want. I'll make you up a character." Yeah, whatever. Don't do the work on it. End up with this sort of emaciated sort of, I don't know, what was she? Something like, well, she had no skills apart from acrobatics. And I'm sorry, but a triple somersault when someone's bearing down on you with a blood axe is piss poor.
I seem to remember your character was quite useful.
Well, my plan was, because she was so weak, was get in early. So normally in the run of things, isn't it? You go into a glade and there's some people, and then you have a dice roll and you talk to them and you find out if the weird bulge in their pocket is anything sinister or not. Not with me. I'm like, right, if anything kicks off, I'm dead. So I'm just going to fucking kill everyone. So I don't know if you remember, but I was like, there's no talking here. I'm just going to get the dagger out and I'm literally doing a triple somersault and just stabby.
No need for the triple somersault in that scenario as well. You could have just gone with the stab, but just showing off.
Just showing off. I can't remember. Oh, as a rogue, that's right. That was a rogue changeling. So I think as well, I had the power to potentially speak in a range of different accents.
You turned into someone, didn't you? You changed into did you change into Dolly Parton or?
I don't know if I have that. I don't think my performance stretched to that.
Someone definitely changed into Dolly Parton.
I think Nish was trying to change at one point. He was trying to morph into Dolly Parton. I think that might be a cry for help. I don't think it was connected to the game. I think so. Nish was a sort of was he a massive dwarf?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And Nish is so unreliable in these situations. Like I think certainly with me and you, we wanted to stick to the game and play it properly.
Yes.
And Nish is slightly more unhinged in that scenario, and I think was lighting up a spliff halfway through his character. I don't want to.
Yes, his character was
besmirch his reputation at the BBC. The character was lighting up a spliff.
Yes, that's true. King Butthammer or something he was called, and he was permanently
John Butthammer.
John Butthammer.
Yeah.
So in between, and I can't remember what Sarah was doing. I think sort of slightly sad and bemused by the sort of idiocy around her.
Her character was half cat or something.
Yes,
wasn't she?
This is the thing. Yeah. Yes. She's very much and I admire this. She seems to be a very organised human being who works hard and is extremely competent, which is something that I've never been able to create in my own sort of work environment. But yeah, she'd done some quite hardcore backstory.
Yeah.
Which enabled her to do amazing things.
Yeah, her character was great. I think I can't even. My character was a necromancer called Bloodcurdle, and I think I just decided the name, thought that was cool, and that was about it.
That is a proper metal name as well.
Yeah, that's what I enjoyed.
"2020 hasn't been the easiest year for anyone, and for those of us who struggle with stress and anxiety, it has been a nightmare. But that's where Grass & Co. can help. If you've listened to previous episodes of the podcast, you'll know that Grass & Co. is a premium CBD range that blends the highest quality CBD with therapeutic botanical ingredients. The organic CBD and botanical formulations have been specially created to relax your mind and soothe your body. Find your lockdown calm with grassandco.com. The best-selling Calm CBD range includes botanicals Evening Primrose, Ashwagandha, Chamomile, Marula and Mint. To find out more, just head over to grassandco.com/hour. If you're new to CBD, the best-selling 500mg Calm CBD oil is a great starting point. And as with all supplements, CBD is going to affect everyone differently. So just start low dosage and steadily build up every day until you find the balance that works with your body. The Grass & Co. Calm range brings peace and tranquility to your day with CBD consumable oils, nourishing body oils and peaceful pillow sprays. Comforting aromatherapy scents have been especially blended to quieten your mind and soothe your body. I am a massive, massive fan, but my current favourite is the Calm Cbd Balm. It's kind of thick and unctuous, and basically you can use it as a massage oil and it will calm you down, I promise. Grass & Co. have supported this podcast since the start, and you can now get 25% off the entire Grass & Co. Calm, Ease and Rest CBD ranges. Plus you'll get free shipping. Just head over to www.grassandco.com/hour and use discount code HOUR, that's HOUR, at the checkout. Grass & Co. Life enhanced by nature. As I stare at you now, there's a lot of vinyl going on, which cheers me hugely. Alphabetized or in just random order?
Not currently alphabetized. I will save that job for when I have a genuine pressing deadline, and then I will alphabetize my vinyl instead. That will definitely be something that I do at some point. Got very obsessed with vinyl at one point. I'm sort of buying slightly less of it now because I tend to really get obsessed with things, go all
Yeah.
in, semi-bankrupt myself on it, and then have to pull back.
I do that too. What's that about?
I don't know, it's just obsessive natures, I think. I'm doing the same with I had during lockdown had a real big thing with trainers. Bought a lot of trainers. So I'm having to rein that in now.
Do you do? My friend has an issue, shall we say, with trainers. It's specifically trainers, and he's been doing it for 20 years. And he had to buy a storage facility for them because his boyfriend said he wouldn't have any more in the house. But what he does is he takes a Polaroid of the trainers, sticks the Polaroid in the box, and then pops the box in the warehouse. So you just see all these photographs. Yeah, but never wears them. They're like objects of unreachable beauty.
So I'm trying to wear. I've decided I'm going to wear them because I do have a lot of unworn ones, and this is only like a 6 month habit so far. But I've got a lot of unworn pairs. But it seems the only reason you wouldn't wear them is to sell them on. But I know I can't be bothered to do that, and I would actually like to wear them. So I'm gonna make an effort. But where to? Where do I wear them at the moment?
Well, this is the thing. This is the thing. Unless you set up an Insta account or something, there seems to be a lot of that kind of obsessive, showy, offy consumption stuff going on there. Maybe you could just, I don't know, what brand are you? Are you brand loyal or do you roam?
I occasionally roam, but I buy a lot of Nikes. I buy a lot of Nike SB. So it's, skateboard trainers. But I do not have the dexterity needed to actually skateboard.
Also, I would say, not that you're in any way of advancing years, but the skateboarding on an adult man is something that I struggle with hugely.
I think once I left the winking and finger guns behind, I think it was time to leave the skateboarding dreams behind as well.
I think that's probably wise. I sometimes will get sort of rushed from behind by a man on a skateboard, and the fury that it instills in me is not it has no real relation to the infringement of my personal space, to be honest. It's obviously come from a deep, dark place somewhere, but it makes me enraged. I'd have more respect if they were in a clown car. I really would. I would bow to that and say, that's taken some thought. It's taken some proper thought. Back to the vinyl, because my brother is an incredibly... He'll hate me for saying this, because he does not like to be forward in his accomplishments, but he's an incredibly good guitarist. And so my childhood was spent listening to him doing metal riffs.
Amazing.
Because nothing is so technically challenging. It seems to me, I don't know very much about metal, as something from that genre. I mean, apart from Hendrix or something. But, it's all about how fast, how hard, how scratchy the guitar and how much movement I can get into this thing. Is that the draw for you?
There's a lot of. I mean, we won't get too bogged down in subgenres, but there's.
Oh, now I'm going to ask though, because I'm on a quest to find out about metal today. Go on then.
Sure. I mean, so there's obviously like very, very technical styles of metal, like you can have or technical death metal. And things like gent as well, which is a very technical side of things. And
is gent an acronym, or what is it short for?
No, I don't even know what it's short for. It's DJENT, and it's like it's more precise sort of rhythmic playing, quite technical. And proponents of gent, the sort of godfathers of gent, would be a band like Meshuggah, who are a Swedish heavy metal band who are it's very mechanical, precise sounding stuff.
Repetitious?
Quite repetitious. Yeah, it sort of all comes from industrial metal as well. So that can all be quite complicated. But then I quite like stoner metal or doom metal, which is quite slow, heavy riffs. So it's probably less technical. It's more about the sort of the riff itself.
Grungy, crunchy power chords.
Exactly. Yeah.
In terms of the singing, is it all pure strangulation? Do you have to get that sort of throat rip? There's not a lot of. I mean, there's not a lot of sort of harmonious vocals in my imagining. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
No, I mean, obviously, if you're looking at power metal, yes, lots of harmonious vocals, but a lot of death metal, thrash metal stuff. You'd get the more shouty, screamy, grunty, guttural sounds, which I quite like. I don't listen to a lot of death metal, but I like playing it to other people. and watching how disgusted they are. Because I quite like it, and part of the reason I like it is other people hate it.
Presumably this is something that's come from childhood, so it's not something you've adopted as an adult. You've always loved it.
No, I've loved it since I was probably 12 or 13 when I got into new metal at the time. It was called. It was Korn, Limp Bizkit, Slipknot. New metal. Yeah,
new metal.
Yeah, those sorts of bands.
Because I presume as a sort of metalist. Being metalacious, that is immediately puts you in a sort of subgenre at school and then in university, because I suppose everyone else is going through their sort of emo goth phase, and then you're quite standalone.
Well, weirdly, I think when I got into it, it was a phase that a lot of people were going through. So it was like the big thing. Korn and Limp Bizkit obviously were quite huge bands at the time, but very quickly everyone else dropped out of that phase, and I did not, and I'm still in it. So, guys, where are you all going? We love this. Remember? What do you mean you like dance music?
So, how many times would you do the horns up?
Well,
have you been seen doing that at gigs? The horns up metal symbol.
I have done. I had some material about this a while ago that I do feel quite self-conscious doing that, and I prefer to just give a little thumbs up at the gig to tell the band to keep going. But I've definitely, I've done the horns up, but I have to feel very free. That has to be a real moment for me that I'm throwing the horns up.
It always feels to me like, whatever your one is into. And I'm like you, I can get very, 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 very obsessive about things. Like for a while I was just only into Polish film posters from the 1960s.
Sure.
Then I went deep into, don't ask why, deep into brownie and scout badges from America around about circa 75. Because I just wanted to make something out of it. I just had a sort of craft project that I was quite into, which then spiraled off into a million other mad things. But it's when you're confronted by other people who like the same thing as you that I then struggle, because it's like seeing a side of you reflected that you don't want to see. It's like, no, I like this, but just because you like this doesn't mean I'm like you, or does it?
Yeah, no, I have very few friends who are into the same music as me, but I tell you what my issue with it, when you're confronted by somebody who likes the same thing as you, I panic that I'm going to be found out as a fraud. So they're going to say something, and I'm going to say the wrong thing, and they're going to be like, "You don't really like that thing. What are you talking about?"
Yeah, there's such competitiveness amongst specialisms, isn't there? And then you sort of forget that you're just doing it because you like it, not because you want to end up on Mastermind.
Yeah.
Although I would really like to see you now on Mastermind. I'd like to hear John Humphreys ask about various. What are the best band names that John Humphreys would have to enunciate?
Oh, I mean, there's some absolutely horrible ones.
Yes, quite clearly stabby, awful, chulky ones.
Yeah, awful one. Pissgrave.
That's lazy. Pissgrave is lazy. Pissgrave.
Shitfucker.
Again. I mean, guys, those
are lazy.
It's just, the first rule of writing is don't do the first thing or the second thing. No, they've just gone, okay, Pissgrave. Yep, that's Pissgrave and shitfucker. But then, having said that, it comes into its own if John Humphreys was.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, what year was Pissgrave? Please do this now. Yeah. Please go on Mastermind. I'm going to petition them immediately.
I'll do underground death metal as my my specialist subject.
Okay, so we've got Pissgrave, Shit Kicker. Was it Shit Kicker?
Shitfucker.
Shitfucker. I'm so sorry.
I'm sure. No, don't worry. I'm sure they're not listening.
So what else can we add to that list?
There's some classic ones like Morbid Angel. And then Cannibal Corpse got as well. Deicide. Those are all classic death metal band names. But people are forced to become a little bit weirder now. They're sort of less obviously disgusting. They're just sort of weird words. Cradle of Filth is another classic. Is a British,
I've heard of, yes.
British black metal band called Cradle of Filth.
That's a good name.
Yes, it's a really good name. They're very good as well.
Cradle of Filth. It's something that has... apart from my brother doing a lot of early AC/DC riffs, it's something that's passed me by. I'm obsessed with AC/DC. I know it's old school, dull, Sorry. It's genius work.
It is. No, I love AC/DC. What I really like about AC/DC, I think they're an inspiration to anyone in any creative art because they found their thing and then they just did that over and over again. they've got one good thing and they've just proved that you can just do the same thing over and over again, and if people like it, they will keep liking it.
I take great comfort in that, to be honest.
It's nice.
That's how I've been rolling out my shit for years. If it ain't broke and all that, if it ain't broke, I think in terms of what this has been useful, because in terms of a sort of introduction, I suppose, would you start with Pissgrave and move to Cradle of Filth? I'm trying to work out, for those listening, going, oh no, I love Ed, I love what Ed does. Okay, he loves metal. Let me journey into that.
Yeah, I wouldn't start with
Shitfucker the Gateway, or
I think I've heard one Shitfucker song, to be honest. I think I saw the name and thought, that's funny. Pissgrave, they're a better band. I would listen to Pissgrave, but okay. I'd have to be in a certain mood. Not entry level metal, I would say.
No.
I mean, just Metallica. Probably start with Metallica. Okay. Yeah,
I love Metallica as well. But also the thing I love about metal, even though not knowing very much about it, but why I'm inclined towards it is they took over the mantle of behaving like proper rock and rollers. Whereas everyone else just sort of became a little bit wispy and I don't know, television respectful. Everyone else was chucking the TVs out the window, and I suppose Ozzy Osbourne being the most obvious and catastrophic kind of champion of that way of behaving.
Yeah, and now poor old Ozzy.
I know, but my God, what a life!
Yeah. Oh, he's lived it, and but he also looks like he's lived that life now.
Several lives.
Yeah, there's so many people you think, oh God, what a rock and roll life they've had, and they're still looking so sprightly. Ozzy is absolutely a warning as to what can happen if you do live that life.
But it's the endless childishness that I love. So even though he'd gone from growing up in a sort of tough environment and then hacking away at the circuit and making his ways, he moves to this sort of gated suburban paradise, and he's still got to throw a ham over a wall because he's furious with the neighbours. I've got a lot of time for that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he's amazing. I love.
He hasn't adjusted his behaviour, I guess, is what I'm saying.
No, he just shuffles around doing whatever he wants now, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. So there's no. Yeah, I mean that will come to us all. I hope. I really hope that will come to us all.
That's the dream, isn't it?
So you said that you were kind of planning. You'd got the rough plans for an Edinburgh show. I was talking to Catherine Ryan last week, and she was in a similar position in that she. Edinburgh's such a big thing in the diary, isn't it? And you work towards that always. That once there's a disruption in the force, actually it becomes harder to chart an idea.
Definitely.
How far had you got? Had you picked a theme?
No, I don't tend to do that anyway. I tend to just write and pick certain stories and work them together rather than pick. I've never been a theme comedian. But this year, I was going to do something different this year in that normally what you do is you work up an Edinburgh show, then you go to Edinburgh and you charge, 10, 12, 15 pounds a ticket and do the whole run properly like that. And it's a show that's ready and you're saying that's ready to go. And then you extend that show and take it on tour. And I've always done it like that. But this year I was going to do it slightly differently and go and do a work in progress in Edinburgh, call it a work in progress, no title apart from that, and just try different things out every day and write after the show. And I think that's what I used to love about Edinburgh when it was a bit more like scrappy and people weren't necessarily coming to see you because they wanted to see a complete show. They were just coming to see you, or they were coming to see some comedy. And I loved that about Edinburgh. And I feel way looser when I'm doing things like that. And then I'm better. So I was going to do that, work that up, then work it up even more, do previews, and then take it as a proper show on tour. Because I always felt bad about going to Edinburgh where it was, not necessarily completely done, but you are telling people it is done. And then halfway through the tour, you're like, oh, it's done now.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think, I have such fond memories of, I sort of grew up in Edinburgh, really, certainly performance-wise. And it was so much more shambolic and better for it. There wasn't the sort of corporate veneer that there is now. And of course, everyone always moans about that. Oh, everything's changed. But genuinely, it has slightly tonally changed, I think, over the years. But we would turn up having really not written very much. There'd
Yeah.
be sort of skeletal kind of ideas as to characters, and then we just fanny about for a while. And I remember the first show that Mel and I did, I think it was £4 a ticket or something. And people felt, okay, we can take a punt on that.
Yeah.
And there was so much more, as you say, you were so much looser. You could involve the audience more. You could show your workings. And I often think the brilliance of Stu Lee, who's somebody that was my peer as we were, doing Edinburgh and stuff. His genius is doing exactly that, showing his workings.
Yeah.
It's obviously it's a tightly written set, but it looks like it's evolving in the moment out of chaos and a faint disregard or a clear disregard for the audience, and sort of hammering it home as if they haven't understood. But yeah, I remember the fantastic guy called Peter Bainham, who went on to write on a lot of Sacha Baron Cohen's things, and just a really genius dude.
Weirdly, I was just watching Arthur Christmas last night, which
Oh, were
I
you?
believe he wrote as well. Yeah,
he's a
amazing.
smashing guy. But he did a show one year that we were up, and he hadn't really booked a venue. He just decided he wanted to do it, and I think it was just a load of comics that wanted him to do it. It was called Monsters, and basically Pete just became various monsters, most of whom didn't speak. He wore a huge pair of grey terry toweling pants and some rather sinister slip-on shoes, and that was it. And he asked the Pleasance Attic in Edinburgh, if he could have a slot, and I think the half midnight slot was available.
Yeah.
And the highlight is sometimes he would get himself so worked up doing one of the monsters that he would vomit, and which he did on the night that I saw him. And that is Edinburgh. I was talking last week again to Catherine about how those shows we were talking about one where someone had shat in a cave. I mean, that for me is the spirit of a festival, is the notion that anything can happen. And actually, I like what you're doing because, in Edinburgh, I don't really want to see something fully formed. I want to see the edges and I want to see the wheels fall off and all that.
And I think that's when most comics are best as well. Like, there are amazing comics who are great when it's polished and it's ready to go. But certainly I spent a few years in Edinburgh telling myself a show was ready and going out there on the first night and then feeling like you had to deliver something that seemed polished when it wasn't. And then you're just all uptight and you're not performing at your best. And I'm much better in a smaller, dingier room where I can see most people's faces and I can chat to them. And that's how the material gets better, rather than just sitting down, writing it and trying to do it as a fully formed piece.
But you say your shows aren't themed, but you're not frightened to sort of shy away from personal stuff, from real stuff.
No, I think that's the majority of stuff I talk about is about myself, really. Yeah.
And it was a friend of mine wanted me to say this to you, in fact, but a friend of mine just became type 1, just found out she was type 1 diabetic, and found you talking about it incredibly helpful, because up until then, the only feedback had been through quite serious medical provision, and actually hearing somebody with that experience going, this is what's shit about it, but this is what's interesting about it, really helped.
I've had a few people tell me that. It's been really nice. I've had messages from parents of diabetic kids as well, saying that me chatting about it in a light-hearted way has really helped, which is great. And that was never my intention when I was doing it. I was just trying to talk about my life, and it is a massive part of my life. Like, it's like having another full-time job, really, trying to look after it. But, some really funny stuff happens because of it. And, it's not going to get me down all of the time. So I think that does help people to hear that, because it can, if you worry about it too much, it can become all consuming. So I think it's always good to hear that other people are going through the same thing.
You say it's like a full-time job, and it certainly appears that way. The constant monitoring of one's self is, certainly when you're young, it's not something you expect to be doing, is it? No,
not at all. And to be fair, I was diagnosed when I was 13, and for a long time I didn't do a lot of I didn't do a lot of the monitoring need. I did the bare minimum. And then probably in my early 20s, I was like, right, I've really got to knuckle down and try and get on top of this. And then there's a sort of period where it does become all consuming. You're like, I'm never going to be able to work out how to do this and have a life. But you can, you definitely can. But it's just about keeping an eye on it.
And there's lots of, there's lots of weighing of things.
Yeah, I think you get better at that. So I did a course at Kingston Hospital where you sort of learn how to, it's a Daphne course, but it's not. It's dose adjustment for normal eating. So you basically learn how to calculate carbs in things and give the right amount of insulin to cover those carbs. But then after you've done that for a bit, you've done the weighing and you've done all of that, you sort of become a bit of a ninja about it. I can look at a lot of foods and just tell you the grammage of carbs and how much I'll need to inject for that. Yeah.
And how many times do you have to inject every day?
It depends, really. So I inject before I eat. So, it's at least 3 times for that. And then there's another long-acting insulin, which I do in the morning. So it's 4 times minimum. But then if my blood sugar's high or I'm eating more than normal or less than normal, it might be 1 or 2 less than that, yeah.
There's a condition that I was reading about, not in relation to this, by the way, but some time ago, where it's almost diabetics willfully ignore the problem, and it's a kind of, and it's a big thing for the medical profession, because you say it's out of sight, out of mind. If you can't actively feel that something's going on, then you just put it to one side. And I sort of feel that, I'm not diabetic, but I take medication for a brain thing, and it's just, when you feel better, it's easy to just go, it's all right.
Yeah.
I did that over lockdown. That was very, very bad.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I mean, there's various things there's diabetic burnout, where people are just fed up with having to look after it. So just decide to ignore it. Or there's eating disorders connected with it as well. There's diabulimia, I think, is the term that the press like to use. Because if I didn't give my insulin and push my blood sugars really high, I wouldn't be that hungry ever. So people can use it as like a way of stopping themselves eating too much, and that is not advisable in any way. No. So there are lots of things like that associated with it. But also I found when I got it on track and I brought my blood sugars into range a lot of the time, I felt way better. And it turns out when I was sort of semi-ignoring it or only doing the bare minimum, I didn't feel good. That's just how I felt all of the time, and I got used to it. Whereas now I know what it feels like when I'm not looking after it, and it's not fun.
No, I sort of, I just became a little bit careless, I thought. I just sort of was in slight denial, and because I felt better, I just eased the foot off the pedal. And then, because my thing's in my brain, if my brain goes haywire, there's nothing to tell me that it's gone haywire, because I'm just inhabiting that reality. Yeah. And so then you're relying on other people going, hello, nut job.
Yeah, which I guess
get back on the pills, love.
And your brain's not going to interpret that
in the right
way. Yeah.
No, just like, why is everyone having a go at me? Why is everyone so angry? And it interests me, that really, the idea, most people don't have to actively engage in self-care to the degree that you do. They don't have to be mindful of everything that goes into their body, be attuned in a rather mindful way to the beats of and the rhythms of your body.
But I've always said as well, I think that's one of the weird advantages of it, in that I think I am more in tune with my body than a lot of people are. So I think I do generally probably live a healthier lifestyle in an attempt to make up some of the ground that diabetes takes away. So, I do exercise a lot, and I try and eat healthily to keep my blood sugars in check. So just because I know what makes me feel good and I know how to do it.
Which makes sense. And that's why, well, anyway, it's had a huge impact on my mate. So.
Oh, that's good. No, I always like to hear that. That's lovely.
And it's good that you can do it, as I say, just in the normal run of a show. You can drop that bomb. You can have a gag and then carry on with. You could be rolling with something else.
Well, what I found about it was as well, when I was trying to write a big bit about being diabetic, is that not a lot of people know what it is or why type 1 is different to type 2 or anything like that. So I had so much more mileage in it, but just by defining type 1 diabetes, I can get plenty of, there's no one else really talking about it. And it's lovely to have an angle.
Everyone needs a thing.
Everyone needs a thing. And, I don't, other than that, I don't really have a thing, because I look and sound like most comedians who've been on television for the last 20 years.
But you've got a thing now.
Yes, finally. Although I feel like I may have exhausted the thing already.
That is, but I do feel that, though, really, particularly at Edinburgh time, because most people's shows, you don't fall into this category, but a lot of people's shows are themed. And I do sort of feel we're almost at that point now where comedy has become so candid and almost like misery porn with some punchlines. Yeah. I wonder whether this phase will be extinguished and we'll go into some new trend.
But I've been thinking that for the last 5 years, to be honest. But it's still the press still like it's what the press like, right? That starts the trends, and that people do themed shows and people do these shows which are about sort of quite serious topics because that makes them stand out. I think it has to get to the point where 90% of the shows are about traumatic things, and then the ones that will stand out are the really silly shows.
That'll be exactly when it's like when we as a society achieved peak beard. I remember that was a news item when more men had beards than not, and therefore it didn't become a thing anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, oh God, no, I don't want to be like you. So everyone looks like a sort of semi lumberjack. And it's like we're over there. But you're right. It's when that you get to that point, that tipping point in comedy where most shows are about. I remember somebody saying, "Have you done your Dead Dad show yet?" It's like, oh man, this is to you. But at the same time, I'm thinking, no, I could do an hour on my dead dad. I felt really bad. I mean, he'd laugh his head off, but it's how quickly you can sort of go from a state of utter despair to probably some anecdotes there that I can just change that. We could squeeze a gag out of it.
I've never thought to do the themed show really. I like being silly, and I like just writing whatever comes to me, and I like just something will happen to me. I'll go, I reckon I can make a 5-minute story out of that. It doesn't necessarily fit with the last 5-minute story I wrote, but I'll work out a way of linking them quite smoothly. And
where is the ideal end point? Because you do lots of things. I mean, obviously, you stand up, but podcasting and all kinds of telly stuff. Is there a sort of latent actor in there? Is there a producer or a director? What is the next thing?
I sort of just take things as they come, really. I like doing lots of different things. So the end point, I think, is just adding more things, and just because I love doing podcasts. I've got about 3 of them on the go at the moment. I love doing stand-up, and I've occasionally done acting things. I'd like to do more writing, write a sitcom, that sort of thing. I'd love to do a food travel show. I'd love to do documentaries. I'd love, I'd do everything.
So obviously, food is a massive part. I mean, not just simply as we've discussed, because it's life and death, and you have to sort of monitor it. But you are a diabetic foodie.
Yes.
You and I love that because instead of food being medicine, you've still managed to retain the joy of it.
Totally, and I think that's important as well, and that's what people seem to enjoy, is that I can still enjoy this, and I love it, and I can eat what I want. I just need to be careful when I do it. It's a huge part of my life. I'm trying to make myself into the food comedian. That's what I'd like. That's the end point.
That's a good spot to end up. I think. The food comedian is a good. So, in terms of the food travel doc, where's the first destination? Where do you go and what do you eat?
Oh well, this is, I guess, outside of COVID times, right?
Yeah, COVID doesn't exist now. We've smashed it. We've whack-a-moled it, as Boris has said, or whatever.
I mean, there's plenty of places I'd love to go that I've never been, and I'd love to go and experience the food culture. I mean, I've never been to large parts of the world like Thailand and Hong Kong. I'd love to go to India, to China. I've been to Japan. I'd go there I'd do a food tour of Japan. That was just phenomenal.
Extraordinary.
We went for 2.5 or 3 weeks, and we didn't have one bad meal.
No, I went to a petrol station and had a better meal than I've had in fine dining restaurants.
The 7-Elevens and the convenience stores, you can just pick something off the shelf, and it's incredible.
We went to one, and it was, real spit and sawdust place in the absolute back and beyond middle of nowhere. And as you say, it was 7-Eleven, and they've got some sort of noodles and broth and some sort of very curious dark eggs. And we've never eaten so well. We just, you never get sick. Yeah. You could eat your dinner off the floor there because they are incredibly clean.
It's incredible. Yeah, we had nights where, just if you're away for a while, you're like, I don't want to go out to a restaurant, or I don't want to find a restaurant, even though there's plenty around. But you can just go to like a little convenience store, just fill a basket up and take it back to the hotel rooms. Perfect.
And the fact that every little, you've got this almost like little tiny wooden houses with the banner that just signifies the door of the restaurant. And that's the area of specialism there. So you go into one place and it just does skewers, sometimes just chicken skewers.
Yeah.
But then mate next door will do pork skewers.
Yeah.
And it's the best chicken skewer you've ever had.
So I think that's got to be the first stop on the tour.
That is, I'm absolutely accepting that as everyone's primary foodie destination should be Japan.
Maybe there's a food travel show of me just buying things from supermarkets and eating them in my hotel room.
And wistfully talking about what it might be like if you were allowed to get on a plane and do it for real. Yeah, yes. I mean, I'd be interested to see how far you could get from the Taste of Difference sort of aisle at Sainsbury's, or the sort of world foods.
Yeah.
It's world foods.
All within my room.
All within your... Yeah, so you start off, the basket's there. I'm trying to format it now.
Yeah, go for it.
You pick up... Where would you want to go? Where's your first show set? I'm obviously in your hotel room, but where are you visiting culinarily?
Well, let's visit India, shall we, for the first tour?
Well, you're going to go to World Food section. You're going to smash the Sharwoods.
Yeah.
Obviously, other players are available in that space. You're going to get the poppadoms. Admittedly, you can't. The naan bread. You're probably not going to be able to. There's a lot of carbs in that.
Yeah, I with a curry. I mean, if we're going to get in depth of the sort of diabetic minutiae, with a curry, quite often I'm picking rice or naan. I don't want to go too heavy on the carbs. And you know what? I'd normally go naan.
Which is a much, much, much more authentic way of doing it.
Is it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the certainly from my travel, I've travelled a lot in India, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert. But most of the places that I went and I ate with locals rather than in posh places, the paratha and the naan is king. The roti. Rice is just for Westerners, really. In many of the places I went, they'll pile that up for you. But if you've got, it's like, you could just scoop everything into it. Perfect.
Yeah, no, I'm into that. I'll do that. It is incredible. I was thinking about this the other day, how we have taken curry in this country and turned it into like an eating challenge. Like
it is man versus food, isn't it?
Anything that we take in the UK or in America, I guess they do the same, and go, we do enjoy that cuisine, so we will take that back to our country and we will times the volume by 10.
We will up the cheap ingredients like chili and fat. And lose all of the spicing nuance that you've passed down from generation to generation to generation.
And then claim that an entire nation's cuisine is unhealthy.
Yes, I'd be furious about
it. Curry's unhealthy, isn't it? No, that bucket of curry you're eating is unhealthy, just like a bucket of any other food would be.
But then a lot of the time, if you speak to Indian people about what Indian food you eat in England, they're just completely confused. And occasionally they'll say, "Oh, isn't it that shit we made up when they all came over here during Empire?" Because it'll be, like korma is ludicrous.
Yeah.
It's children's food. It's got it's just a bucket of cream, butter in it, and maybe the odd cardamom pod. I don't know.
It does sound quite nice now you're describing it like that. Actually,
but it's funny because you're right. It's a dirty curry. When people go, "Oh, do you fancy a dirty curry?" Well, it's only dirty because we've made it so.
Yeah.
I had one in lockdown, but there was only two of us. But we had the double carry from Deliveroo. Well, when they've got both hands full. And
I've done that where I've had deliveries of like sushi or something like that, and it's a huge bag, and they've put in like 8 pairs of chopsticks, and there's only 2 of us there, and I will, as I shut the door so the guy can hear me, I'll be like, "Dinner's here, you lot."
Hey, gang.
Come on, all 7 of you in the room now.
I've started doing that. This is along with the bowing. I've started doing this thing where the more I've been locked down, the more sort of slightly suspicious of humanity I've become. So that if I leave my house and there's anybody in the street, I turn around and pretend to be waving at somebody.
Great.
As if the house isn't empty, guys, right? And sometimes it is empty and I look like such a dick. But I'm trying to populate in their imaginings this really lively space in there.
Yeah.
Just back off! Hang on, let me turn this off. Sorry, Dan, that probably blew your eardrums out, mate. Did you manage to see Dan? Dan is the sort of handsome, shadowy sort of auteur of this podcast. He's sort of he decloaks like a Klingon occasionally if there's a technical issue. But other than that, he just sits in the shadows.
Have you ever met him in real life?
I have. and
he does exist.
He's a Matryoshka doll of interest. There's so many layers there. I've barely started in peeling them back. barely started.
Will you have him as a guest on the podcast one day, maybe, to get to the bottom of what's going on? He
used to feature quite a lot in the first series, mainly because I didn't know how to speak into a microphone, which was a challenging start to an essentially audio-based sort of venture. But I would often describe him to people, and it would take on he would be different every time. At one point, I described him a little bit like the Mother of Dragons. So he was a sort of Daenerys figure for a while, but then people didn't buy it. People didn't think that he would sit there with beautiful coiled blonde hair.
Yeah, and
atop a dragon.
Also, then we're expecting a sudden and unnecessary heel turn from Dan. Right at the end of the series, he's suddenly going to just go mad for very little reason. No reason,
not really. Certainly not enough reason to satisfy the millions of people who'd invested years of their lives in the world of Westeros. No, it would imply him having been compliant, and would also just very much a sort of a lover of truth and freedom, and then abandoning all that. To torch some children. Are you looking forward to the new one? I know you're a fan of it, but are you looking forward to there's the new Targaryen?
Yes, I mean they were planning loads, right? Which one have they actually gone with in the end? I don't think I'm too tuned into this.
So they started off with a Children of the Forest one. So this was going to be the origin of the White Walker story, and they've now gone with dragons, which I think was an almost inevitable.
Yeah.
End point. So this will be the Mad King, who I think is being played by the incredible Paddy Considine.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah, no, I'm super into that then.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah,
I mean dragons and him, correct?
I think I wasn't too disappointed by the end of the series, but also I was finding it quite funny how angry people were as well.
Furious.
Yeah, just really angry, and I get it. You're not happy with how a thing ended, but also, come on, guys. Perspective.
But 1 million people signed a petition asking the writers to rewrite it and HBO to reshoot it, which shows. Listen, with respect to whatever people who write petitions about anything, but do they understand how television works?
Oh, just crazy. I think HBO should have said yes, we'll do it, and then a year later said, right, we've done it, and then gone. This is the last episode, the new last episode, and just played the old one again.
Or dubbed it. So for example, sorry, there's some spoilers here for those who've not seen the final series of Game of Thrones. But, having an internal monologue, so maybe freeze framing Daenerys atop the dragon, and then just freeze framing that shot, and then just her just riffing over the top going, look, I'm really bored now of just freeing people in bonded labour and being an all-round good guy. And I've never really liked kids, unless, of course, they're burnt. So I'm going to now burn some. And maybe that would satisfy them, because then the requisite sort of character development would have been done.
What is it? The last book hasn't come out yet, right? Is that ever going to happen?
I don't know. I think he's quite busy. This is George R.R. Martin. I think he's quite busy with the Wolf Sanctuary.
Right, okay. Yeah, that would take up a lot of time.
I'm a massive fan of the idea that he just... as a side, I've talked about our sidelines, whether it's collecting brownie badges or crocheting or metal or, collecting trainers. This guy's just actually got a shit ton of wolves. And that's how you spend lockdown.
I suppose if lockdown hasn't made him write the last book, nothing's going to, right?
Where's the excuses? I've struggled, to be honest, on writing deadlines. It's been very, very hard to pull the usual ones out of the bag. Distracted. So when we come out, where are you spending when lockdown's over? What's the first thing you will do? What will be your first mission?
My first mission is to get married. Because that was supposed to happen on April 25th this year.
Oh no, mate, that's shit.
Obviously couldn't happen. And then they were saying, the venue was saying, do you want to postpone it till later in the year? Everything will be fine by then. And we were like, no, we're going to be more savvy than this. We don't think it'll be all right by then. Let's postpone it till March 2021. And now we're looking at that going, that's not going to happen either, is it?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know, like a big wedding, like a big group of people, like over 100 people. We weren't sure, so we pushed it again to September 2021. Okay. But I think we're going to try and legally get married before that, because I just want to get married now. Yeah,
that's a lovely thing to hear. Lovely thing to hear.
So that's mission 1.
Ladies, he is off the market. Gentlemen,
sorry, ladies.
He is off the market.
Sorry, gents. So that's the main thing on the agenda.
I love that. All right, well, we'll end with that, because that's the sweetest thing in the world. The fact that love can still flourish in times of isolation. Ed, thanks for spending an hour with me, my lovely.
Thanks for having me.
A million thanks to Ed, and you can hear more from him on his podcast Off Menu, which he hosts with James Acaster. And thanks to Waiting for Smith for providing all the music in this episode. You can listen to more of his music on YouTube or Spotify.
Yes, it's true. When I'm down and I'm